Hello, and welcome into episode 11 of the Bear Claw Media Podcast. I'm Chris Bolin, and joined as always by Ben Schleiger. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Oh, we're doing fantastic. We had an awesome conversation with a UNC celebrity. Just fantastic stories, fantastic things that we would never hear anywhere else. This is definitely the best podcast so far.
Yeah, absolutely no arguments from my end. Kyle Sloter joined us for about an hour and 10 minutes. Former UNC quarterback of the last time the Bears had a winning record, and backup quarterback the time before that. But he went into just about everything, talked about before UNC, his time here in Greeley, and then NFL, XFL, USFL. It was awesome. He didn't hold back either.
Yeah, fantastic. And, just great getting all of his behind the scenes stories from all of his different times and whatnot. And I mean, hey, dude has his jersey in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and is a USFL champion. So pretty special. We got to have him on. Big thank you for him for having a great chat with us.
Yeah, seriously. So I guess without further ado, let's hit it. Well, Kyle, appreciate you coming on, man. Great to talk to you. So I figure first off, can you just kind of run us through your story? I know you started in Georgia and UNC onto the pros and everything. Can you kind of run us through that?
Yeah, so I'll give you the quick. Let me make sure my sound's not too high here. I'll give you the quick rundown here. So high school was an under-recruited guy, went to Northern Colorado, or not Northern Colorado, Southern Miss. Went to Southern Miss right away. I thought I was going to be a quarterback there, and they ended up making me a wide receiver when I stepped on campus pretty quickly. Never got an opportunity to throw a football there, and then went through my first 3 years. Eventually, they took my scholarship from me, told me I wasn't good enough to play for them anymore, and that they needed my scholarship to go and get guys that were good enough to play. So then decided to transfer to Northern Colorado. There was a little bit of thought about finishing out college because I had been there for 3 years, but taking all my summer classes. So I was about 3 hours away from graduating. So was going to have an opportunity to do that if I wanted to, but I knew that I wanted to, after some thinking over the whole situation, decided to transfer, which brought me to Northern Colorado. Once I got there, they told me that I was going to play quarterback my junior season. And once I got there, they gave me the old bait and switch and told me that I was going to, like I said, be quarterback, and was wide receiver almost immediately. So played my junior year of receiver. Senior year, I had already had my degree, thought about not going back because I was the backup quarterback to Jake Nipp. I thought about not going back there and decided that I had to finish what I started. I was only 1 year away and thought, what's one more year of college? Most likely going to be fun, not in a role where I'm going to be probably playing too much. So I was thinking about, just social life, like go back and have fun, and you've already graduated. So just, it's already paid for. So you might as well just go have fun for a year, take a victory lap. And, we go through that first game against some school that I think was like a D2 school, supposed to be a beat up game. And
I think it may have been Rocky Mountain.
Yes, that's exactly who it was. So it's supposed to be one of those games. We're beating them pretty good. They come to me at halftime, say you're going in. Haven't thrown a pass at this point in my career. I'm super excited about the opportunity. Go out there, and I had a guy wide open on the sideline for like a 6-yard hitch. It was a bootleg, so fake right, boot left. And guy wide open on the sideline, first progression. And I was like, well, I've waited a long time to throw a pass, so I'm going to go for it. I throw the deep cross coming over the middle, and the linebacker falls back under it, picks it off, hits him right in the chest, takes it for 6. So my first pass of my career is a pick 6. And then I think I threw the ball maybe 2 more times, and we played really poorly at the end of the game. Coach is saying we were thinking about putting the starters back in. So that was a tough moment for me, because you tell yourself, if I just got the chance, I can do it. And then you do get the chance, and it doesn't go the way you envision, especially through 5 years of kind of hardship. And then going to Abilene Christian, I knew that if I was ever put in that situation again, that I wanted to be ready. So studied a lot for that moment. Didn't think it would ever come again because of how I played. Thought I'd just ride off into the sunset as a backup quarterback. And I think with the very first play of that game, Jacob Knipp gets tackled, breaks his shoulder. I'm kind of pushed into the game and, end up having a pretty good game. I think it was something like 400 plus yards. Can't remember exactly the yardage, but 400, 7 touchdowns. And it was a pretty close game. Kind of put me on the scene a little bit. Won National Player of the Week. Did that 1 or 2 more times over the course of that year. That led to getting an opportunity with the Broncos, which I thought was pretty cool, because I was essentially like a pseudo Colorado kid at that point, having gone to school there. So felt like I was representing Colorado a little bit, being with the Broncos. Felt like there was a little bit of a cheering section for me when I played in those preseason games, and ended up having a good camp, good preseason. Broncos tried to, initially they told me I'd made the team before my last preseason game. And then at the end of it, they had signed Brock Osweiler, let me go, and went to the Vikings. They tried to put me on practice squad. Vikings came and put me on active roster for 3 years. So did that. Had a little bit of a run-in with the coach over there. He, for whatever reason, didn't like me playing well in Minnesota. I guess because they had just paid Kirk Cousins. So they had just given him a lot of money, and I guess backup quarterback's supposed to play like a backup. He's not supposed to, play like somebody that can play for a lot less money. So they ended up cutting ties with me because I was playing well. I was actually asked in my 3rd preseason with them, or 2nd preseason with them, I guess, because I had one with the Broncos. But halfway through my 2nd one, I was told to do less by higher ups in that organization. So it's hard to do less when you want to do well. So I did more, and then ended up getting released. I'm kind of at this point in my career where I'm okay saying stuff like this, but felt like I was blackballed a little bit. I was told when I left the Vikings, when I was released, had my exit meetings, Gary Kubiak, who's somebody I respect, was telling me he'd already had 12 phone calls before 8 a.m. on me, saying teams wanted me to be their backup, and that I was going to have, he's like, I know you're sad about, not being on this team, but, you're going to have an opportunity somewhere. You've put good things on film every year. People are asking about you. They want you to be the backup, blah, blah, blah. So I go and take a lot of those calls. And eventually those 12 teams, I never ended up hearing back from them. My agent couldn't get a hold of them. We didn't know why. At the end of it, now waiver claims have gone through, and now practice squads are being built, and I'm seeing Jake Rudock signing for $25,000 a week, and Alex Magoo signing for $30,000 a week, and so signing for. So I'm like, okay, I'm not on an active roster, which is kind of baffling, because I've been the best quarterback in preseason for 3 years in a row, and statistically, and I'm not even getting calls about practice squad. So these 12 teams just disappeared. Nobody wanted me for practice squad either. I'm just kind of sitting there in my Minnesota apartment looking out at we lived on the Mississippi River, and I'm kind of just like in disbelief, really. And go ahead.
What have you like got any answers, or do you have an idea like why you were kind of blacklisted?
Yeah, so I go to Arizona, Cliff Kingsbury, and I have a huge amount of respect for him. They call me late that day as practice squads are being built, and he's like, "Hey, man, we had something fall through on our end. Like, we thought you were already taken. We really want you. Are you not anywhere?" And "No, I'm not anywhere." I was kind of pissed off. I wouldn't be surprised if they'd. I was pretty mad at that point. Practice squad was a little bit of a slap in the face to me at that point. I know it's an honor to be on a team, regardless, but it felt like a little bit of a slap in the face given what I had done to that point. And I get to Arizona, I'm going through my physical. All the new guys that are getting picked up on waivers and practice squad, we're all sitting in a big room, and they call me into the Turk or whatever his name is, the guy that cuts everybody, like the coach's right hand man, comes in the room and says, "Hey, Kyle, Cliff Kingsbury wants to see you up in the office." Everybody turns and looks at me like, am I getting cut before I'm even on the team? Like, it's typically not a good thing when the coach wants to see you before all this. So I go up to his office and sit down, and he says, "Hey, man, we're going to take a chance on you, but what's this we're hearing about you being a bad character guy, bad teammate, doing drugs, all like a number of things, doesn't take practice seriously." And I'm like, "Whoa, where is this all coming from?" He's like, "Well, we're hearing this from the Vikings." And so somebody in their building was telling all 12 of these teams. And so I told my agent this, my agent gets on the horn with all of these teams, and they're hearing the same exact thing. So really, essentially, long story short, and I'll tell you what happened with Cliff Kingsbury, but long story short, it felt like the Vikings tried to bury my career, because if a quarterback, especially the most important position in the NFL and really in sports, if we have a guy that was being paid league minimum and he ends up going somewhere and performing well, as they knew that I could do that. In my mind, I know that I could do that. I'm assuming here, this is not, but this is the conclusion that me, my agents, professionals, coaches that I've talked to with numerous teams, this happens all the time to players. Kind of disappointing that it happened to me, but they said those things because if I end up, say, with the Cardinals and I'm turned into a star, that GM, that head coach, those guys lose their jobs because they had somebody under their nose that they're paying $84 million, guaranteed highest contract ever, to a guy, when you have another guy who is doing just as well for a lot less. So essentially they tried to bury my career, which happens a lot. It just goes under the radar. And so Cliff Kingsbury goes, "Well, how do we know you're going to be a guy that takes practice seriously, doesn't do this?" I'm like, "Well, I've passed every single NFL drug test, random, scheduled, every single one of them, no question." I mean, that's a straight up lie. You can check the facts there. That's all documented. And then I said, "You've got two guys in your locker room who I've played with before, and Kenyon Drake and Max Garcia. And, I'll let what they say stand for my reputation." So they went and asked. He's like, "Okay, well, we're going to go ask them." Asked them. They said I was a good guy, good character guy, loved playing with me. Played with Max in Denver. We were really good friends there. And I think the thing that hurt the most when I heard those kinds of things is I'm somebody that I want to be a great player, but I value being a great teammate more than I value being a great player. Like, if you told me that I was a great player but an asshole, that would probably sit worse with me than he's the best teammate I ever had. He just never got to play because he wasn't good enough. Like, I would rather have it that way. So we're 4 weeks in with Arizona. I was leading the scout team there against the first team, so the first team defense. So I crushed practice every day in Arizona. After like 4 weeks, get done throwing a couple touchdowns in a red zone period against the starters, and Cliff Kingsbury comes up to me and is like, "Hey, bad practice player, huh?" And I was like, "Coach, I have no idea what the hell they were saying. Like, that's like out of the blue." And he laughed about it. He's like, "Man, I can't believe how off the report I got." He's like, "The guys love you here. You've done nothing but work. I mean, I'm talking, I'm the last guy off the field at practice. I'm the first guy to show up. I'm the last guy to leave the building. Like because I feel like at this point I'm fighting for and I've always been that way, but I felt like I was fighting for my NFL life because, just so many things, so all these teams had this stigma around me that didn't want to touch me for a long time. We eventually got through to a few teams. Lions ended up signing me to the active roster for the back half of that season, last 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it was. Lions brought me there. Bob Quinn lied to me, said that they signed me to a 2-year deal. They gave me a signing bonus, and they gave me guaranteed, or not guaranteed, but they gave me workout bonus, and they said for the next year, and said that I was going to be there for 2 years and have a chance to be the favorite to be the backup the next year. As soon as free agency comes, they don't end up paying me my workout bonus. They cut me day one as soon as they can, and they go get Chase Daniel, who's been a 12-year okay quarterback. I mean, I'll give the guy his respect. Anybody that can do it that long, but I mean, I'm a young guy. I'm 4 years in. Like, I'm what you're looking for in a quarterback. A young guy, tall, athletic, can throw. I mean, I feel like I don't want to be arrogant, but it riles me up a little bit talking about it. So then I go from the Lions to the Bears. Practice squad, was there all year. That was a year that during COVID did 15 straight workouts. And everybody thinks that these workouts, like Kyle's going to, I think the hardest part of workouts is like Kyle's going to the Vikings to work out, or Kyle's going to the Jets to work out. And everybody thinks that like if you do well, you're going to get signed. But like, all my friends that like, that go through the same thing, they're like, dude, I almost hate getting workouts now because my family gets excited, and workouts are like notorious. It's like 10% of the time you're going to get signed. Like, very rarely are you getting signed. They just want to check their boxes. They want to see, like, okay, in the event that, say, Derek Carr gets hurt with the Raiders, we're going to have our ready list. We've worked these guys out. Kyle's at number 1. He's at number 2. He's at number 3, whatever he's at. So went on 15 different workouts, had to stay in a hotel for a week at a time without any contact with people. So 15 straight weeks of just sitting in a hotel room. Tough time. End up getting signed by the Bears, then get signed by the Raiders in February, then get cut in March, then get signed back in week 2, get there and probably practice the best I ever have in my life. John Gruden loved me. He was talking to me about, next year, and we're going to work you in to be the backup. And I mean, I found out John Gruden got there at 4 a.m., so I'd set my alarm every day for 3:45 because I lived right down the street at the hotel, and I would wait for his car, his black Mercedes, to pull up to the gate, and I was the only one in the parking lot. I made sure I was walking in the building at 4 a.m. with John Gruden, and then the janitor was sending him videos, I found out, of me being there at 9 o'clock at night, last person in the building, was showing me in video, like showing the video at our team meetings, need guys like this that care, that want it. So like I was doing everything that I needed to do to continue to be a part of that organization. Well, John Gruden gets fired halfway through the year, and Kyle Sloter gets cut the exact same day. So I was a John Gruden guy. Guy loved me. That guy's still in the NFL. I'm still in the NFL. So, it's just everywhere I've gone, I mean, I've been given a lot. I'm thankful for it. I appreciate the time in the NFL. I feel like I deserve a lot more for what I put into it and how I performed. So there's a little bit of bitterness there, but at the end of the day, I just try to be thankful because I know that I could be a financial advisor right now too if I didn't end up going back for my senior year or Jacob Knipp doesn't get hurt. Obviously, don't wish that on anybody, but that's kind of what propelled me into this spot now. And now I'm trying to kind of, whether I continue playing or not, I'm still under contract with the USFL. I'm still trying to figure out all that stuff. But I'm trying to break into a little bit with more of a Twitter presence, trying to break into some football analytics Would love to take the same route that like a Pat McAfee did, where I can do it myself as opposed to like going to an ESPN or a Fox, but would love to be able to try to do it myself to start and then see where it goes. That was a really long-winded answer. Sorry. I know you guys haven't said a word since we started. That's my bad.
Hey,
No,
that's
the people are
fantastic.
here to
Those
listen to
details
you.
are
So
just definitely sobering for us because we're glad that you think that you deserve more. Because us as fans, we're like, man, what does it take to get Slaughter on a team and just keep him there? Like we would see Sean Mannon go on there, not dogging on anybody, but it was just like you were definitely preseason MVP for 3 years, and we're like, what's the deal? This guy does great. Like, just give him a shot.
Yeah, I would say the biggest I tweeted about it, and I truly do feel that way. And this is kind of what started all this, but I I really think that if you want to be, and somebody maybe should have given me this advice, or had they given me this advice, but you grow up and you think the best player plays. You think if you go out there, you play well, like you never want to do worse than what you can. Like that doesn't make any sense as a competitor. But all these guys in the NFL, I mean, I could rattle off 45 guys in the NFL that like I haven't thrown a football in a month, and I could go out there today and throw much better than them. I mean, there's 45 guys in the NFL that do not belong there, and it's a shame because they're just best friends with the starter. They spend a lot of time kissing ass instead of doing well in practice and doing well when they're called upon. It's really just how do we make our starter and our big investment feel comfortable. And if you play too good as a backup, which I've experienced them telling me to do less, and these are the things that I've never said before, but like I'm getting to a place where I'm okay saying them because it's I'm probably on the back end now. So, but it's just a shame because I didn't spend enough time probably trying to kiss ass. And honestly, that I was looked at as a threat as opposed to a friend. And that's probably why I'm at where I'm at.
damn. Well, I hate to pivot away from that, honestly, but I imagine you have to have a pretty like a unique relationship with UNC, I'd say, because like you said, if you hadn't come back for that 5th year, who knows what you'd be doing right now. But
Yeah.
also, you said they kind of bait and switched you. Like you transferred here to play quarterback, and like almost first day, they
Yeah.
had you lining up at receiver.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's such a tough dynamic on both schools really for me. I was in those NFL locker rooms where like Clemson and Alabama are playing, and we got guys on the team and they're like, having a ton of fun watching the game together and like cheering for their teams. And it's like, damn, I wish I like had that with my colleges. I still cheer for them. My biggest gripe was probably with the head coach at the time. Um, he did a lot of things, and I won't like necessarily get into a lot of them, but he did a lot of things that purposely tried to keep me down. There was a situation in school, and he was a big school guy, like go to school, go to class, and so was I. Like I graduated with a 3.5, 3.6, whatever it was, good grades. Um, but I had a situation with a teacher at UNC, and he was trying to look out for me, but I was in a predicament my senior year of spring ball, like in that springtime. When I transferred, they took 45 hours from me. So I had to make all those up because you have to have a certain percentage. So I had a year and a half lost. And it was the same
Ooh.
accrediting body that gives the business school their license in at Southern Miss as Northern Colorado and
Huh.
the Munford College of Business. So it didn't make sense as to why some of them didn't transfer. I mean, I'm a senior taking freshman chemistry. So, but I had to take 21, 22 hours, whatever it was in that springtime. And so
Ooh.
you're missing spring football as a senior. And the most important thing to me was to try to play. I wanted to eventually try to play, whatever that was, receiver, quarterback. They told me I could be the backup quarterback while playing receiver. So the big issue was I told my teacher, I just flat up told him, I was like, hey, I'm not trying to offend you. I'm not going to be here like half of the days for this class because football is the most important thing to me. Like, I'm still going to pass this class. I'm going to work my ass off however I got to do it. But I'm just letting you know, like, I'm not going to be here for half the classes because I have to be at football. I want to be at football. And so that teacher took that as the coach is making me say that. And like, I really don't want to be at football and I want to be in class. So he's like, do you want me to say anything? Like, that sounds like you're being forced to go to football. I'm like, no, I want to go to football. So this guy ends up calling the athletic director, and he was very high up in the you guys know Professor Jarvis?
I've
No?
heard the name, but I wasn't a
I
business
mean, not to
guy,
throw him under
so
the bus. He's a great guy, but he didn't do me particularly right there. I mean, he was looking out for me, but like, he didn't understand the consequences of what he did. So he
yeah,
went and told the AD. AD goes to Ernest Collins and says, which I didn't mean to drop his name, but I did.
everybody
Goes,
know who was the coach then anyway.
yeah. So he and me and Collins were, I mean, I was like one of the only players that used to stop in his office and like shoot the shit with him and have a great time and laugh with him and poke fun. And like, we had a great relationship. Well, I get a call one night sitting in my apartment that Ernest Collins saying, "What the fuck did you say to your teacher saying that I told you to skip class and blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, now I'm in the middle of this huge misunderstanding of like, no, I told him this is my decision. I don't want to be in class if it means I have to miss football because I'm trying to play. I'm trying to do, this is my senior year. I want to play. It's the most important thing to me. So eventually, when I got to play at Abilene Christian, he was happy for me when I first threw one touchdown. They thought Jacob Knipp was coming back in by like the seventh touchdown. Well, really by like the third or fourth. He felt like I was like showing him up, and we won a like 62-55 game or whatever it was. So I'm like, I just played well. And honestly, like, I'm probably coming off as a jerk on this. I'm not meaning to be. This is not how I am. But I mean, he got an extension to coach for 2 more years at Northern Colorado. And I mean, truly, if we don't play well there, which I was a big part of that, he's not going to be there. We had the best season that they had ever had. We went 6-4 or 6-7-4. I think it was 6-4, 7-4, 7-4.
6-5.
6-5. There you go.
Right.
Anyways, first winning season that we had ever had at Northern Colorado. And the last at that level. So and then we have Pro Day, and I was lined up to go to Colorado to go to Pro Day to do my to do Pro Day. I was lined up to go there, had been planning on doing that for months. Well, he calls me the night before UNC's Pro Day and says, "Hey, there's a rule that says if we're providing a Pro Day for you, you can't go to the other one. So like, the Colorado's not allowing you to come, so you have to come to UNC." So I'm like, well, that's a huge blow to my chances because there's going to be 32 scouts at Colorado. We had 3, the Cardinals, the Panthers, and one other, I can't even remember the other team. And then the lasers were getting blown over in the wind, so I had to run my 40 time that was recorded in someone else's basketball shoes on a basketball court, and I was planning to run 4.5. I was going to be one of the fastest quarterbacks in the country being timed, and I ended up running a 4.67 in basketball shoes on a basketball court, and they added a 10th to my time because it was a fast surface. I'm like, I'm running in basketball shoes. I can't dig in. I can't get a start. I can't, like, everyone's slipping. We had a guy tear his ACL trying to do the pro shuttle on a basketball court. It just like skipped across and it caught his knee as he was trying to turn and go. So couldn't go to Colorado Pro Day apparently. So after this is all said and done, my agent was trying to reach out to the AD at Colorado and was like, "Hey, is this a rule?" And you took him off of the list at Colorado. He's like, "No, he's still on here. We haven't heard anything. We haven't heard." So he told me 12 hours before. I mean, I'm talking the night before, 7 o'clock. I get a call from Colin saying I have to, instead of 48 hours doing my pro day at Colorado, in 12 hours I have to do it at UNC, because he was pissed off that I was going to Colorado instead of doing our UNC one. He felt like I was trying to show him up there as well. So again, guy trying to undercut a guy that has done everything right, tried to do, like, I came out here to Colorado 24 hours away. You told me I was going to be a quarterback. I'm a receiver. Didn't bitch about it. I'm just, maybe I'm too nice of a guy, but damn, I'm like, and this is another thing I've never told anybody. Like, and I mean, I've told people, but never publicly on a thing. But just, so then I get in my car, go down to Colorado, try to refocus up. I'm going to have to do all the stuff again, go down there, have the best workout of my life, and have 24 teams call me the very next day. And that kind of set everything in motion. But just feels like it's weird. It feels like everything's kind of been against me from the jump. Coaches, I don't know. It feels like it's all worked a little bit in spite of things, but it eventually catches up with you. People don't want to see you succeed, and they're in high up places. You're not going to succeed, and it's, I don't want to make excuses, and that's why I don't say anything, because it sounds like it's an excuse.
When you like kind of picture yourself, what jersey are you wearing? Because you've played for a handful of teams. What one do you like feel that connection to?
In terms of NFL, you're saying?
College, NFL, the whole career.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, if you asked me in college, up until that senior year, I would have said I felt most like, because I changed numbers a lot, changed, probably number 10 with my high school team, because I did that. I was 10 from middle school to high school for, what is that, 7 years ish. And then bounce around, but then I would probably say 8 overtook that for UNC. And then now I would say mostly just because it was kind of, I was living a dream and numbers stayed the same and all that. I probably feel the most like a Viking wearing number 1, which is why that's right there.
Nice.
No, that makes sense. Honestly, that probably would have been my guess coming in too. Sweet. So you, when we talked in college, or you mentioned Abilene at that point, it was probably 3 or 4 weeks after that happened, was your favorite football memory. You also mentioned a pick 6 you got, I think in 5th grade. Like you picked it off in the end zone and returned it like 100+ yards.
Yeah.
Did something in the NFL replace those two, or are those still top of the leaderboard?
I would definitely say that the 5th grade pick 6 fell a little bit. That one, I don't know why. I know he said it before that, but like that was the proudest I've ever seen my dad. So that's probably the only reason that one was up there, because that's like I remember like 2 plays from my childhood. Like one, I was playing running back and ran it for 80-yard touchdown through like a bunch of people, and then that one. But it was probably just my dad's reaction that is why that one's so memorable. Abilene, I would say that one is probably, that one's hard to beat. I think that one's number 1. Yeah, I think that one's number 1, just because of like all the things that I mentioned. Like I didn't really have, I could tell my story for 6 hours, but it, all of the emotions leading up to it, like I can still tell if I really go in depth in that story, I can still like get a tear in my eye. It's something that, it was an emotional time for me, because I had no success in college, and I had always been a great athlete growing up, and everyone thinks that, I remember my senior night in high school, and all the guys are crying and blah blah blah, and I'm just like, hey, I'm still playing. I'm on to the next one. I got 4 more years of football. But like, you don't realize that, the politics become even greater. Coaches feel partial to the guys that they choose, and I was played behind a lot of guys that got fired and offensive coordinator changes and things like that. So a lot of hard times in college. You don't play for 4 years. You watch all the guys that didn't play for 4 years. Every single one of my friends that didn't play either their first or second year quit and gave up and just went to school. So like, I was the last. I mean, I'm probably one of the last college guys that, like, there's probably very few that never play that stick it out for 5 years. So stuck it out for 5 years. I kept believing in, I'm a Christian, have strong belief in God, and kept believing that there was a plan. And so the emotions that I felt on that night, that I shared with family and friends, were probably my favorite football memory. I would say a close second, probably going out there down in my first preseason game. We're losing to the Bears, and throw my first touchdown to Isaiah McKenzie. That kind of propelled, I feel like, my career, because it was like, at that moment, I played with so much confidence. Nothing could touch me. Like, so I felt like every preseason game after that, every practice after that, I was like, I belong. Like, everybody needs an I belong moment, because even the best quarterbacks, I'm sure there's millions of guys that have gone out there and their first taste of preseason football is an interception, and they go in the tank for the rest of their career, and they never make the team. And I mean, there's plenty of free agents or low draft picks like that. Go out there, throw an interception, and you'll never see the light of day again. And I went out there and threw a game-winning touchdown, and I feel like it propelled me for the rest of my career. So I think that Bears one with the Broncos was probably number 2. And then I would say number 3 was probably the preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks. That last second, like 5 seconds left on the clock, roll out left and throw it into the end zone to Chad Beebe for a win. I love that. And then probably up there as well as coming into Denver after they let me go and beating them in preseason.
Was that first touchdown you were talking about, that deep ball, like the post over the middle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's kind of, go ahead.
No, as crazy as it sounds for a preseason game, I remember exactly where I was when you threw that pass.
That's funny. So believe it or not, our head coach, who I just talked shit about for 10 minutes, he let everybody out to go watch my first preseason game. And whoever it was that worked for the team at the time recorded they got a recording of everyone watching, like, ball in the air, it's caught, touchdown, everyone jumping, going crazy. So like, when I got back to the locker room, I got to see a video of my former teammates all watching me and kind of supporting me. So it was really cool experience there as well. The funny thing about that route was that's the only guy on the field that is never supposed to get the ball. He's supposed to clear out the safety. He's supposed to, but like, it was crazy. So it was almost like slow motion. So I worked with Steve Fairchild, who's a Colorado native, coach at Colorado State. He was my quarterback coach when I was going through the draft process. And I remember him saying, if you ever get 3 guys rushing you, hold on to the ball, because you got double teams everywhere. You got 6 guys protecting you. You got 3 guys rushing. So that's exactly what happened. It was 3rd and 18. We had a penalty or something that took us back to 3rd and 18. And I remember seeing 3 guys. One of the guys dropped and just held onto the ball for another couple hitches, and they dropped the go. It's really a go right through the middle of the field that's supposed to take the safety away. And so the safety, all those safeties, they know that they're like decoys. So he dropped him and tried to play the 20-yard dig. So like, guy coming into like the hash, running from outside into the hash. That's where the ball's supposed to go. And I go to throw it there, and I'm like, there's way too many people standing right there for that guy deep to not be open. Look deep, guy's scot-free, just freaking put it up. nothing to it. I mean, there's no one around. You can't miss. You just got to throw it high enough. So it worked out. It worked out, and it probably propelled my career.
That's awesome. I feel like I've been hogging the interview. Ben, you got anything?
Yeah, I was gonna say like all those stories are fantastic. What kind of brought you back to the Bears for homecoming the other week?
Yeah. Obviously, I have a great amount of appreciation for the institution itself. Gave me an opportunity, gave me a scholarship. Only hard feelings there were between a coach, and he's not there anymore. So support there. But also, I would say mainly I was in town, which this is probably even cooler. All of my best friends. I mean, I wouldn't say all of them, but like a big majority. So my first 2 years in the NFL, we called it the boys trip, but I bought a big place 2 years in a row down in Florida for all of my Northern Colorado, like the seniors when I was there. So like we would all go down there and party for a week. So like we keep in touch. I mean, I'm in a group chat with all the seniors still to this day, and I don't think we've missed a day talking to all 15 of us or so in that group chat in 7-8 years since we've been out of college, whatever it is. So they're still some of my best friends. I was actually in town going to Stephen Miller back in the day, if you remember that name, number 87 receiver. I was going to Stephen Miller's wedding, and a lot of our football guys still live in the area. So Denver is like a second home to me. I mean, I've got so many friends there. But we all decided to go up there for homecoming. It worked out that his wedding was actually on a Sunday and not a Saturday. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go up there and check out the game. It happened to be homecoming, perfect timing. And but I think the coolest part of that is that we all stay in touch, and we're all still very, very good friends. They were all at my wedding that I just had over the summer. So that bond is something that I'm really grateful to UNC for, among a number of other things. But yeah, just super grateful for, and that's why I wanted to come back and support.
Nice. Yeah, and congratulations on that. That's a fantastic life achievement right there.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
Any other spoilers? Who else is in the boys group? No pressure.
No, Stephen Miller, Quinn Zamora, Mick Dubose, if you remember him, Kyle Newsome, Mike McCauley, Kiefer Morris.
Kiefer.
Let's see who else. Kiefer was a defensive end. Theron Verna, tight end for us. Who else is in that group? James Floyd, Kendall Ryan. He had concussions and never ended up playing. He was medically disqualified, but great guy. Trying to think who else is in there. There's a number of other guys. Nick Johnson's one. Alex Wesley. Yeah, I'd say all those guys.
Nice.
So
a little blast from the past.
Yeah, it really is. No, there's some good guys, man. I really enjoy coming back to Denver and getting to hang out with them.
Yeah, nice. Definitely UNC's kind of greatest hits right there. And right now they're definitely not in their greatest hits. Obviously, there's a lot going on that could be better and a lot that they need to improve on. From your time there and from what you've seen over the years, what's some advice you would give the team and maybe the administration on what they can do to invest in the football program in positive ways?
Yeah, I would say obviously coaching is a huge deal. If you got great coaches, they can make up for a lot. I didn't really think that when I was younger. Being around some really bad coaches made me realize how being around some really good ones makes all the difference in the world. So I think coaching, and I don't know anything about the coaches there. I'm hoping, and I mean, from what I've heard, feel like they're okay, better than the last. I mean, can't be worse than the last group of guys. I've heard nightmares. I mean, Ed McCaffrey, Colorado legend. Obviously, Denver Broncos great. Not going to sit here and bash him, but just didn't a lot of inside stories of bad things. Not a lot of effort there, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Just he wasn't a football coach and his heart wasn't in it, and he didn't know it, I guess. I mean, it's pretty plain to see from everybody else, but he didn't know it. And then, yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest thing, and this is probably the idea that people don't want to hear, and it's probably the hardest thing to do. Just comes down to money. You know, I mean, it's plain and simple. Like, you go to Alabama, like imagine taking all of Alabama's money, all of the players. So the facilities are going to be terrible. The training staff is going to be terrible. The training room is going to be terrible. The amenities are going to be terrible. Everyone's immediately going to go to Georgia, and Alabama's not going to be very good. So, like, you win recruiting by having the best stuff, and that's like the difference between the NFL and, like, when I went to the Vikings, we've got Sam Bradford sitting 3 lockers down for me, making $25 million a year. And the Vikings facility at the time, Vikings facility now is state of the art, but my rookie year, it was the same one from 40 years prior, and we were literally in a rat-infested basement. And we have guys in here making $25 million a year. So, like, because they own your contract and your rights, and you're not going to leave unless they want to trade you. So the amenities don't matter because now the NFL has taken a little bit of a different tune over the last, like, now all these guys are getting upgraded facilities and bigger and better. It really just started, the Vikings really started that whole transition of, like, hey, we can't give our guys shit stuff because it just looks bad. It doesn't look great. So everyone started upgrading across the league. But yeah, I mean, college football, recruiting is where you win games, and you're not going to get recruits if you don't have the amenities, unless you find, and here's the thing is, like, there's plenty of guys out there that are diamonds in the rough that you can find. It takes really good coaches to find them. It's really tough, and it's not an easy thing, but if you can't rely on, think about it, all these guys that nobody else wanted, you might hit on a couple of those on a team, but you're not going to hit on a lot of them. I mean, you might hit on like 1 or 2 out of 10 that nobody else wanted, that there's now. So that, like, that's my point, is if you're going to get the guys that are good football players, you have to have good facilities. You have to have a good weight room. You have to have good coaches. You have to pay people. You have to pay coaches more to get good coaches. You have to. So, and that's the hardest thing to do for a school like Northern Colorado. And that's what puts them behind the 8 ball, because you go to a school like Montana, where the whole state of Montana, like, that's their NFL team. So, like, it's going to be hard to compete with people like that. Like, I think Northern Colorado probably caught a little bit of lightning in a bottle with, like, our senior class. We had a lot of guys that people didn't want that were really good. And then the transfer portal is something that's going to crush a place like Northern Colorado, because if I go there and I have a breakout season, I'm going to go right down the street to Colorado, where I can get $500,000 of NIL money, because NIL and transfer portal are going to murder schools like Northern Colorado. Because, like, you might get an NIL deal from Roma's for $50, like, get a free pizza. Or I can go to Colorado, where they're handing out Rolls Royces. You know what I mean? So it's just like, unless we get money rolling, it's I mean, it's gonna be tough. And you need somebody like rest in peace, you need somebody like Vincent Jackson to, like, throw 10 mil at Northern Colorado. You know what I mean? So, or you need like an Ed Werder, or like somebody who's done really, really well from Northern Colorado to donate. So, like, and it's not a $50,000 donation. And that's what the daunting task is because everybody sees as, like, okay, but if I give $50,000, that's going to pay for, like, refurbishing the helmets. Like, it's going to take, we need $50 million. So like we need Elon Musk to just like come out of pocket, or like we need the next Elon Musk to come to Northern Colorado and not only come to Northern Colorado, but have a phenomenal experience. So
Right.
because like if you don't have a great experience, you're not going to donate. And like I don't know, there's so many aspects to it, but like it's the cold hard truth of what it is. Like you might again, it might be a once in a 10-year thing where you catch lightning in a bottle in Northern Colorado again, where like a lot of guys just but transfer portal is just going to crush people because like you see guys have one good year, they're going to leave. So, and it's a money thing. Like it's
Yeah.
if I can get $500,000 as a college kid for the next couple of years to help my family or start my life or do whatever, like yeah, money talks. It just does, and it's unfortunate because you want there to be the loyalty and all that kind of stuff. But like, hey, you can come back to UNC and go to Roma's every night and go to the downtown. That and I had a great time. I would love UNC, but it just doesn't have the things that Tuscaloosa has to offer, or Athens, Georgia has to offer. If you play well, most of these kids are coming in Northern Colorado trying to get out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we
So
don't even have lights for night games.
yeah, you know what I mean. So like I mean, there just needs to be a lot of fundraising. A lot of people need to pitch in together because it's like, again, I you can get $100,000 and it costs $50,000 to fly commercial or private for like the year, on like a cut rate charter, and $50,000 is probably a ridiculously low estimate. I would say it's a lot more than that. I would say it's probably $200,000 to fly private every single week or 5-6 times or whatever it is. But yeah, it just takes a lot of money. Like you got Alabama producing, I mean, they're making hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So it's just like, how do you, but hey, I hope they do well. It's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah,
tough.
we're gonna have to find those big pockets for sure. Kind of steering a little bit away from that. We just got some fun speed round questions for you about UNC related, Colorado related. During your time there, what was your favorite local restaurant?
I would say, geez, if I said anything other than Fat Shack or Roma's, I would probably be lying because I spent more time there than, I mean, after games, everyone's going to Roma's to get the I forget what kind of drink special they did,
Oh,
bazookas.
bazookas.
Everyone's going to get bazookas. So pizza's pretty good, especially if you've had a few bazookas. So it yeah, probably Roma's, probably Fat Shack. What's the Chiba Hut? Chiba Hut's good too. Trying to think of any other place. I mean, I was a college kid, so I didn't like saving up and like splurging was going to Texas Roadhouse. So like that was like, okay, like the boys are going to Texas Roadhouse, and it's a big deal. So
I was gonna say, if you haven't tried DP dough, maybe your next time through town.
yes, I have tried DP dough. That's another one. I was more of a Roma's guy, pizza there, but yeah, I do like DP dough. I have a friend that got that like religiously at 2 a.m.
Nice.
So,
And then, what was your favorite class or subject? Obviously, probably outside of Dr. Jarvis.
yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely not multinational arbitrage. Let's see. Capstone was brutal. Class was called Cases. That was terrible. I would say probably chemistry. Like doing freshman chemistry as a senior was fun because like I already knew all the answers and like just get to screw around the whole time and like play with chemicals. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Can't go wrong.
And did you have a favorite spot on campus? Was there like a go-to for like studying or whatnot?
So as I was driving through campus, is it called the Student Life Center? Is that what it used to be called? Student something?
The
But
UC
it's where
Center?
that maybe it's across the street. It looks like they just redid a lot of it.
They
It,
the UC, I can't think of what that even stands for right now, was there, but
yeah.
they built like an entire new student center. I think that
Yes.
connects to it now too.
Yeah, and they had like so you had the cafeteria that was
Mhm.
like kind of closer to the football field and the tennis courts and all that kind of stuff, but there was the other cafeteria that you could go to if you had a meal plan that was across
Yep.
that street. That's the building I'm talking about. So they like completely redid. Spent some time there. I lived really, really close to campus, so I'm not gonna lie. Like, I more times than not, like if I didn't have to be at class, like I was probably just like, even if I had 20 minutes between, like most of my classes were in the business school, and I lived like I don't know a block away, so I just went home for
Nice.
30 minutes or
Nice.
whatever. So like, can't say, yeah, I don't know. I was smart, but I didn't study a whole lot. So like I don't truly, I don't think I ever went in our library. Like, I don't know why. I never made my way over there.
Respect, like
Yeah.
respect to
Yeah,
that.
probably not respect.
Right, I
Probably
worked there.
bad.
And you were missing just a lot of dust and some neat books, not much else. What was your favorite part of Colorado, or like your getaway from campus, but like not outside the state?
Yeah, so I would say every chance that me and all those guys got, we would escape and go to the mountains, go to Winter Park to ski, snowboard, um, do all those kinds of things. So we'd make our way to the mountains, went to Horsetooth Reservoir a few times, got some jet skis, did things like that.
Ooh.
We were always, any time, like summertime at UNC was the best time just because, like, I know it's not like, a little bit of a smaller school. Like, do people really stay around? Maybe, maybe not. Don't know. But I was with all my football guys, so it didn't really. But it was weird because we were all there for workouts in the summer. And this is what the craziest thing was for me coming from Southern Miss to UNC was like Division I football, like FBS football was uh, you are there in the summer and you are sprinting until you throw up and you are running and lifting. And it's like the most intense time of the year. At Northern Colorado, we didn't have a summer training program when I got there. So like they had like 2 times during the year, or not the year, the day. It was like you can come lift at 10 a.m. or you can come lift at 2 p.m. And so, or you can just not go at all. Like, you don't have to go. You can just, but like we would all lift because we wanted to be good. So like, but we'd all go at like 10 o'clock, maybe take one day off a week or something like that, and like go on a hike or go to the lake or just find something stupid to do or whatever it was. I mean, there was one week where we had a truck pool in the bed of the truck like every day for a week, and it was just dumb shit that we used to do. So I miss those days a lot. The carefreeness of it all was so awesome, and nobody had any plans. Like, it was just hanging out, taking hikes, working out, drinking beer, good stuff.
During those summer workouts, did you have a favorite teammate to work out with, or was it just kind of just the boys in general?
I would say my best friend from UNC, and I lived with him, so it's hard to. I mean, we had more fights than anybody that like I came into contact with. I mean, it was constant, but we also loved each other and we were great friends. And he was just in my wedding, was Kyle Newsome. So he's one of my best friends. But like outside of him, I mean, James Floyd is obviously, I lived with him as well, but for a shorter period of time, he kind of ditched us. So he didn't get to be in the bromance quite as much, but still got a lot of love for him. He was an usher in my wedding, so just missed the cut. I hope he sees this. Just missed the cut. But No, I mean, other than Kyle Newsom probably being my best friend there, I I love like 20, 25 of those guys like that I still talk to regularly. So, um, yeah, I mean, working out wise, I probably couldn't pin someone down. I was making my way through the weight room, you know, talking shit, challenging people. They were challenging me. Like it was just a fun atmosphere to be a part of. I think that's probably why we were so good. We had so much and every team does, but we had so much love for one another. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. And then this one's always hit or miss with athletes, but in honor of Halloween, what's your favorite and least favorite candy?
Mm. Um, let's see. Well, I'm on this recently in the last year. I've gotten on this big health kick, so like everything candy wise kind of scares me. But I have like sour Skittles are like my thing that I can't say no to. Um, Sour Skittles are up there. My favorite governor of all time just banned sour Skittles in California. That's me being completely facetious. I hate Gavin Newsom. Guy sucks. California blows. Um, but so that makes me sad because I got to be in LA a lot, so I won't be able to get my sour Skittles out there. Hopefully Gavin Newsom watches this.
That's
Bad
good.
place, man. But anyways, he doesn't have a handle on shit out there. But I would say, I don't know, some coconut shit, like some
Ooh,
a coconut candy. Like what's some coconut? Like almond
Like
joys,
almond
baby
joy?
Ruths. Like,
yeah,
yeah, if
mounds.
you throw coconut on it, I hate it. I don't want anything to do with it. It's just like the texture is weird. Like it's kind of like you're chewing on some paper. It's weird. So
Feel that. Um, well, we will. I have one more thing before we let you get out of here. We really appreciate all the time you spent with us tonight.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, we talked briefly, but like, what's next? You said you're still signed to the USFL technically. I see you all over Twitter doing like film breakdown type stuff. Recently, I think last 4 or 5 days, you started posting on YouTube.
Yep.
Saw a Josh Allen breakdown, and then I think a Kirk Cousins breakdown.
Yep.
So, what? Tell us about what you got going on moving forward.
Yeah. So obviously not knowing what my future is with the NFL. At a certain point, you kind of contract wise, like they can go get a rookie for a lot less, and he has the same amount of experience as me. Is kind of what I've been told. That's what ends up happening to you if you have a clock to play. So don't know that that'll happen again. Would love for it to. Just don't know that it's in the cards. Um, would really love to continue to play football in the USFL and the XFL. Won't like divulge too much information, but they were paying me a lot different than everybody else to play in those leagues. So I was getting a premium contract to play with them. And after the first year in the USFL, they came back and said, we're not going to honor the second year of this,
Hmm.
which is, I'm kind of confused about what the hell contracts are because, like, it seems like the people that make the fucking things can just back out whenever the hell they want.
Yeah.
But like I have to honor them. So like I'm kind of confused about like this whole contract thing. It's like this unspoken thing of like football, like you can back out whenever you want, but I can't. So don't know what the deal is with that. But they said they weren't all the money was just going to be paying everybody the same. So that's why I went to the XFL. XFL offered me a premium contract to do that. And then yeah, so I guess where I'm going with this, I went to the Stallions pretty beat up, knee beat up, shoulder beat up, pretty hurt. I feel relatively okay right now. But they told me I wasn't going to play with the Stallions, and I was like, okay, I'll just kind of collect like whatever the $60,000 or whatever it was for the 10 games, and which isn't bad, but like if that's all you do for the year, like in 3 months' time, that's really good. But if that's all you ever end
Yeah.
up doing, then 60 grand, 60 grand. So my point is and not shitting on 60 grand, but it's a lot of money. But my point is where I'm at right now in my career, I'm not really interested in like breaking my legs and breaking my shoulder and breaking my hand and tearing my groin and all the things that I've done over the last year and a half for that amount of money. It's not necessarily like, for lack of a better word, worth it for me at that point. So I am trying to get into some of these analytic things where, I want to get into the YouTube stuff. I talked about being able to try to do that myself. I would love to be able to, at this point in my life, I don't, I'm going to, I don't know I know what I'm trying to say, but I don't want to say it. But I would love to be able to monetize this in a way that allows me to be a very hands-on dad one day. Would love to be able to educate people in football in my way. I think that's the passion that I have, is I really want to help people understand like what they're seeing on Sundays in their favorite players, why they say the things they do. But I don't want to have to, like, people say, like, why don't you go be a coach? And, it's, like I said, my dad was always there for me. It meant a lot having him at every game. And I see the life that those coaches live. And especially if you're in college, you are the recruit. Like in the pros, you have scouts. They go do a lot of that work. And then you get the tail end of it and like approve, like, they have 300 guys that they go through, and then they bring you 20. So then you can do it from a desk. But like, so NFL is a little bit different. The days are crazy. I would say NFL coaches probably have 2-ish months off and the rest of the year on. In college, you have a week off. So for me, coaching, unless I'm doing like high school, and I think that's why like your Brett Favres and guys like that, like just do high school to stay around the game, because college and NFL is way too much time. I mean, you don't even get to be a dad. I mean, people are missing the birth of their kids. They don't get to be a husband. I want to be there for all those things. So I really think that if I can monetize this YouTube stuff in a way that allows me to kind of be financially free, and be able to do that from home, be a hands-on dad, and educate people the way that I want to in the game, I think that's kind of the way that I'm leaning. But also like to do some analyst stuff, like maybe on TV, things like that. But then you also get into sports are played on the weekends and you're missing your kids' games, things like that. So hard to know. That's kind of why I want to do it my own way with this. So trying to get into some YouTube stuff, trying to get into a little bit of a Twitter presence. I just got a TikTok for the first time because all these kids freaking told me I had to get a TikTok, and I don't want China having all my information, but now they do, so I'm screwed. So I might as well lean into it. So I just got TikTok for the first day, and weirdly enough, got a call from Japan. My screen just said Japan. And then I got another call from like Russia. Clockwork. So if I end up dead, Japan and Russia are calling me, and all my phone says when it rings is Russia. It's like the scariest thing ever. I'm like, what the hell am I doing that Russia's calling me?
What the fuck does Russia want with me? Like,
and like Putin's on the line. He's heard all this shit I've been talking. So yeah, guys.
Well, yeah, I think. I mean, it seems like there's a niche there, because there's players working in the media space, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot doing like the analytic and play-by-play breakdowns like you are.
Yeah.
And it always. No, go for it.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it always amazes me because I feel like I have a good idea what's going on, and I'm at like level 3, and then I hear people like you talk about it, and you're level like 6. Like mentioning so casually things I would not even ever think about.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily a hard concept. It's just concepts that people don't know, and there was things that I didn't know. Like I went into the NFL not knowing anything. Like I had to learn. Like everyone thinks that like, oh, you learned football like your whole life. Like high school, they told me to drop back, and I literally knew who was running what route, and that was about it. And then you go to college, and I learned, okay, these are the routes they're running, and this is your protection. Like this is how they're blocked, like which offensive linemen are blocking who, and that was it. And then you get to the NFL, and it's like, how do you read defenses, and how to get these tells on when guys are pressuring, and how to change your offensive protections, and how to. I mean, it's just it goes from I mean, talk about like say level 3, 6, whatever. I would say 0 is knowing absolutely nothing. When I left college, I probably was at like a 3, and I would say now probably at like a 9. Like I'm not gonna ever say a 10 because you can learn more and more and more. But yeah, I'm trying to take an approach. I think the thing that pushed me into this, it was my USFL experience, because I had a lot of people in the media talking about interceptions, because I had like 10 touchdowns and 12 interceptions or whatever it was, but won the USFL, all USFL quarterback or whatever, which is a pure vote. And my point was, when people asked about that, I had 7 interceptions that were like deflections, flipped up in the air, getting hit in the back while throwing. Like I had 3 interceptions all year that were like thrown poor balls or poor decisions. The rest were like, hey, I got smoked in the back and the ball flew up. I mean, we were playing the Gamblers one game, and I'm supposed to have 4 touchdowns, and like guy falls down in the end zone because he gets tripped and they don't throw the flag, and the guy that trips him ends up wheeling around and picking the ball off. I'm like, and then you have all these stat watchers that are like, Kyle Schleiger sucks, you can't even play in the USFL. And I'm like, dude, go. The reason I wanted to do this was because there's not enough people in media standing up for like players doing the right things that just end up in shit situations. And a lot of the times that's the quarterback. So everybody's like, Kirk Cousins sucks. Kirk Cousins sucks. But I'm sitting here like, okay, we just whiffed. The guard just whiffed. He's got a dude in his face. He has 0 time. I know all the routes that these guys are supposed to be running, because the concepts, you can tell who's supposed to be running what, and his number 1 progression is running the wrong route. So he's looking in an area. So I'm like, but that's the things that 99% of everybody doesn't understand. So like that's the stuff that I want to shed light on. Like I said something about Justin Fields that blew up, that, you know, all these radio shows wanted me to come on for Chicago and talk about my Justin Fields take. Well, he's not playing great, but he's getting 0 help. He's getting 0 help. He's got no blocking. Receivers are getting 0 separation. Guys running the wrong routes. Guys in the wrong places. They're jumbled. You got one receiver here and another one right on his ass. So like those are the things that everyone just sees. Justin Fields taking sacks and Justin Fields throwing the ball poorly and but like I'm sitting here like, you put Tom Brady in this system, he's gonna suck. He's gonna be terrible. Like you have to have help from everyone wants to act like the quarterback's the only guy that has to play well and you win. Like you got to have 10 other guys. If you have one guy on the offensive line routinely miss, it might not even be the same guy. If on 5 different plays, 5 different linemen miss their block, you're gonna get sacked every time. So everyone on the team has to do the right thing, and everyone just wants to look at the quarterback. So what I wanted to do with all this was stand up for the right thing. The takes, I wanted to say, even if I say so-and-so is not playing very well, that person should be able to watch the film and they're going to sit there and say, well, he's right. Like, I'm not going to do any clickbaity shit. Like I said something about Puka Nacua the other day that everybody lost their minds about. But like, I watched the film and like, he can't beat man. And the times that he did beat man were times where the guy was 10 yards off and he's running a shallow this way and the other guy's way over. The guy covering him is way. I mean, all he had to do was run straight. I could have had 70 yards in that game. And I'm like, you know what I mean? So and I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying like, he's not elite. He's good. And everybody like lost their minds because I was like, I'll show you Cooper Kupp film and I'll show you Puka Nacua film. And it looks completely different. Cooper Kupp is elite. He's top 2, top 3 receiver in the league. Puka Nacua is a good receiver too. So I just want to be truthful with all these takes. That's kind of where I'm going with all this stuff. And that's what I want to do with this analytics.
Dude, that's awesome. And seriously, Kyle, thank you again for coming on. We would love to have you on again. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. It was fun. I appreciate you guys having me. You guys are cool.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. See you guys.
Thanks, Kyle.
Week 9 was pretty entertaining. I think it was headlined by one big game, and that Idaho over Montana State. I picked it, and I still don't think I expected this to happen. You know, but Idaho just looked good for the majority of the game, and Montana State, that field goal at the end ended up being kind of the moment to point to, but they just didn't get it done when they needed to.
Yeah, really, Idaho made me a believer. I was already high on them and have had them in high regards all season. But yeah, I was surprised that Montana State struggled as much as they did. And that really cool dart pass that Hayden Hatton had in the end zone right there, like 9 times out of 10, that gets picked. But, that threading the needle right there in that corner, that was impressive.
Yeah, McCoy, he's on it. I think I've been as impressed by him, like in what I've seen this season, as I have been by like the Montana team or the Idaho team as a whole. Which I guess makes sense. The team will kind of go as the quarterback goes, but I know he's only a sophomore. But is he like a pro guy? I feel like I can never really tell, but some of the throws he makes, he just looks like he has the arm.
I think he's getting more and more that way each week. I mean, it's always hard to tell, yeah, especially uh, with them being young and whatnot. But as it goes on, like McCoy, he's starting to look more and more real.
Yeah, I mean, having Hayden Hatton to throw to probably doesn't hurt matters anyway, because he seems like he's just always open, no matter when I look up on the screen. Um, but yeah, it'll be a little inside baseball. We're recording this on Sunday to try to get a jump on things, because we'll be recording the rest of this episode on Tuesday. Um, but it'll be interesting to see how that top 25 shakes out, even just amongst the Big Sky teams, because Idaho has the wins over Montana State and Sac State, but then they have that loss to Montana, and Montana's looked legit recently after struggling early in the season. I mean, it'll all play itself out a little bit later on, because the rest of these teams kind of play in the next few weeks. But I'm interested to see how all that shakes out.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be odd. I mean, technically, like Montana, like they're doing so well at 7-1. I just don't know what to do with them now. Like that weird loss with Northern Arizona, do we count that as a bad week, or do we look at the film real hard and use that as a scheme going forward? I think honestly, just they're a wagon right now. I mean, they ran us over, so there's a lot of talent in the Big Sky, and Sac State, Montana. That's going to mean a lot this week.
I know that we'll kind of get a little more into that when we do our polls or our power rankings a little later on. But it it feels, yeah, that I feel comfortable and pretty confident in Idaho and Montana State as 1 and 2. Um, and I feel pretty confident and comfortable at Montana and Sac State as 3 and 4. But like any iteration of like those two, I would really couldn't have that much of a problem with, because it's all about kind of resume versus head to head matchups.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if Montana beats Montana State and Sac beats Montana, like I think there's a four-way. That would be a four-way tie. Like that would be absolutely nuts. I mean, at that point, like, do you even want part of the title? I mean, you do, but it's like
Everybody
half
gets a
the
little
conference has it.
chunk.
So yeah, I mean, it's going to be wild. This Saturday means a lot. Brawl of the Wild is going to mean a lot more than what we thought it would in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Seems like that's shaping up to be a bit of a slugfest. So I don't know. It's all we know is we're not in contention by any means. We got some fixing up to do for next season. But yeah, these top four teams in the Big Sky, they're talented, and something I texted mom is I don't want this game to end with Idaho and Montana State. Like it was so back and forth, and Montana State made more errors than they usually do, whether that's Jason X energy or just the Kibby Dome throwing them off because they're inside. Who knows? But yeah, Montana State looked a little bit more mortal this week.
Yeah, and both of Montana State's losses came right down to the wire, which you could say they lost to two of the top teams in the country, like where one play was the difference. But also, it may speak to something that whether it's something X doing or just something in the way the team is built. They haven't. Those are the two games that have come down to the wire for Montana State, and they are 0-2 in them, even though they have some other very impressive wins.
Yeah, and I mean, like just the energy of Kocak, like he was getting fired up. He was just barking at the refs, going after him on that pass interference call he didn't agree with, and when they needed a big stop, he got the fans all wild. He's trying to hype up the students, and just love that Idaho energy. That's something else out there.
All right, so we spent most of well, I guess I'll say we spent a good chunk of time on that game. I would say for good reason, because none of the other Big Sky games this week really did much for me. Northern Arizona 38, UC Davis 21. My main thought, takeaway from this game is every game that they play, I feel less certain about Northern Arizona. Whether it's I'm high on them one week and then low on them the next. But every week I've been just increasingly more certain that UC Davis is not that good. I feel like beginning of the year, I kind of wouldn't have been surprised if they were top 3 in the conference. Then I kind of settled into probably like a mid-tier Big Sky team, which they still probably are. But I think that looks a little worse than I would have thought coming into the season.
Yeah, I think looking at it, it's just so hard with their injuries and their health. It's not a roster problem like it is with Weber State. It's just a matter of they don't have enough of the right guys being able to be healthy each week, and their tight end just hasn't really made a big a difference as he usually does. So it's tough all around for them. Should have been better. Arizona shouldn't be this good, but I mean, hats off to them. They're doing something that works.
Yeah, you're right. It seems to work roughly 50% of the time. It works incredibly well, and the other 50% it's pretty ugly.
I mean, at
Which
the
I
end of
guess
the day, the Lumberjacks, they can still say that they beat Montana. So
that's true. The
whether
only
it's true or
Montana's
not, they got that on their resume.
only loss so far. But kind of speaking of that, weird middle of the Big Sky, Portland State 47, Eastern Washington 35. We were both wrong on this one. We both kind of picked Eastern. Again, I'm surprised, but for that, for the same reason, I'm not surprised, because all of these kind of games between, I don't know, teams 5 through 9 in the conference, I guess I'd say, have just been such a toss up that no matter how they shake out, I'm not going to be shocked.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just across the board, I did awful this week. You did pretty well yourself. So it goes to show what should be isn't. So congrats to all the teams doing the things that they shouldn't be.
I don't think I can pull that one into our next game with a transition, but Sac State absolutely stomped Idaho State 51-16. It felt like a bit of a back to reality game for Idaho State. They've been playing a little above their heads the last few weeks, and I've been 100% here for it. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like this was kind of a okay, we're not there yet, moment that just kind of. And on the flip side, great game for Sac State to get right. After losing to Montana State and having a shaky game against UNC before that, I bet it feels great for them to just take the field and dominate.
Yeah, definitely a back to reality is a perfect way to put it. This is what we expect of Sac State and what we expect of Idaho State. And it's a good dose of kind of humble pie for Baby Hawkins. That way, you know, they know what they did well so far, but this gives them something to improve on. Because just being able to just be like, oh yeah, we're good, we don't need to do any better, that gets you into complacency and dangerous territory. So at least this way, they got some stuff to work on, and we know that Sac State's not a total fraud.
All right. Well, that'll move us into our power rankings, and kind of like we mentioned, my big real takeaway as we've kind of moved into the season is the top four seem pretty set. The bottom three, including Weber State, to me at least, feel pretty set. And just that 5 through 9 range just could go. It depend, like, put them all in a hat, shake up the hat, and pick them at random, because that'll be basically just as good as trying to do any sort of critical analysis. It's just such a shit show.
Right.
You have Idaho State 5th. I have Northern Arizona 5th. I don't feel good about that. I have you. We both have UC Davis 9, but if UC Davis came out and beat Idaho State, I wouldn't be surprised. If they played tomorrow and UC Davis won that game, I wouldn't be shocked. I feel like any of these teams can kind of beat any of them, which I think it'll make it hard for a 5th Big Sky team to slip into the playoffs, pretty much for that exact reason.
Yeah, kind of like when I was doing my top 25, I was looking at it and I was like, consistently there's four powerhouse type teams that we have in there, but honestly, I don't really see a fifth team. I think we were all very high on that at the beginning of the season, being like, yeah, we could see five, we could see so many teams from the Big Sky. Now that we're seeing true colors and whatnot, yeah, UC Davis getting votes last week or a couple weeks ago shouldn't be happening anymore. God forbid anybody votes for Weber. Don't do it. It's just you're making an ass of yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
literally.
Eastern Washington looked like semi legit. Now they're kind of just showing. I mean, 47 points. That's pretty unreal for Eastern to give up to anybody, much less in the damn cup. That's a tough game to give up that many points. So yeah, I think you're right. There's four teams that look real, and definitely could be a danger to any other conference, and a danger within the conference. But yeah, honestly, it might still be the Missouri Valley that has probably gets in more than us.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder, what does Eastern or UC Davis or any of those mid-tier teams, what do they look like playing in the Southland? If they, what do they look like playing Incarnate Word schedule? Do
Right.
you think? Because I legitimately wonder, would a Portland State be ranked 14th in the country right now if they just played the exact schedule that Incarnate Word did? I mean, I have no way of knowing, but it's kind of
Right.
interesting. I wonder how much the Big Sky does kind of cannibalize itself every year when it comes to playoff teams like that.
Yeah, cannibalize fits the bill for sure. I mean, depending on how the schedule goes, and that's the tough part, is we have more teams than we have conference games. So if everybody played each other, we could be like, cool, even. Nobody escaped. Nobody went through a gauntlet. With our schedule, there's just so many schools, and you can't see everybody. So I think that is definitely a wish list for a lot of Big Sky fans. But also, let's not do too much more alignment. Let's just keep it kosher. I would say some teams get a break sometimes, but this year it seems like everybody's earning their stripes.
Honestly, if anybody got a break, it may have been UNC, and they haven't really been taking too much advantage of that.
Oh, getting
Um,
a break with the fourth toughest schedule though,
Touche, you're right. I was thinking conference play. They don't have Montana State. They
fair.
get all four bottom teams. Or I mean, they're not even really. They get the other two kind of bottom teams and like some coming into the season that didn't look as tough, but you're right. That is kind of hilarious to say when they have like the fourth hardest schedule in the country.
That's true. Like thinking about it conference wise, they probably did get a little bit of a favorable pull since we have some of the lower teams that we're still looking bad at and still might look bad at. But yeah, hopefully it gets better for us down the stretch. But yeah, there's some teams that have a way tougher conference schedule that are showing good.
Yeah, I mean, as tough of a slate as any of these Big Sky teams have played. You versus minus 300 money line bets may be the toughest gauntlet anybody's faced this year. Coming off of a rather poor week this week in our picks segment, Ben. You went 1-4. I went 4-1. We kind of, I don't want to say we got lucky. We split in kind of our two marquee matchups, and I just happened to guess the right one. I had Idaho over Montana State, and you had South Dakota over SDSU. We'll touch on that one.
Look bad now.
Yeah, that we'll toss that result out. Call it just part of the gauntlet for South Dakota.
Hey, sometimes you can have perfect reasoning and it don't mean nothing.
But honestly, just like South Dakota, I bet you're itching to get back on the field. So I'll let you lead us off here. Portland State at UC Davis. Yeah, what UC Davis, like we said, I feel like you're kind of on the same boat as me, just less and less impressed by them every week. A lot of it has been injuries. They've just been torn through. What are your thoughts on this one, Ben? Is your hatred for Portland State going to cloud your judgment here?
No, not one bit. I like UC Davis. I want to root for him. I just don't think that there's enough healthy bodies that are in the starter position, and they're just having some weird production. Unfortunately, Portland State is also having weird production. They're doing fantastic offensively, so I don't see how we don't choose the Vikings in this one. But it's a weird year in the Big Sky. Maybe things flip.
Yeah, you know what? For that reason, I think I'm going to go UC Davis because all of my instinct is telling me Portland State, but like Portland State looked good last week, and that feels like a sign for them not looking good next week. So I'll just ride the roller coaster a little bit. I don't really love either pick, but I guess I'd rather be wrong picking UC Davis than Portland State.
Yeah, I mean you're not going to go with your old buddy Brucey Barnum?
Yeah, Brucey B. I guess we should have I should have mentioned the year to date records before we started, so we'll double back a bit. I am 22-9 with 27 points so far, and Ben is 15-16 with 16 points. Feels bad. I'm not trying to rub it in, Ben, but we just got to let the people know.
Hey, don't give me any pity picks. It is what it is. Sometimes you swing for the fences, and just like the underdogs, you figure out there's a reason that you're an underdog.
So yeah, let's Weber State at Idaho State. I think just based on a lot of what we've talked about so far, I think Idaho State is it feels so weird to say, but I think Idaho State's a tier above Weber. Idaho State, even coming off of this giant loss, it feels like they still have kind of juice for the season. And I don't know how much is left for Weber. It's looked rough and it's looked uninspired. So I think I'm going to go with the Bengals here. What are you thinking?
Ooh, not sugarcoating it one bit, just schmack. Yeah, as much good as Baby Hawkins and the Bengals have been doing, I worry a little bit that they're gonna get a little bit caught up in their feelings from this last week just not going their way. But then again, it's at Idaho State, so I'm just going to lean home team on this one.
Okay, so Cal Poly at Eastern Washington. The Eagles coming off a pretty disappointing loss to Portland State, but it's Cal Poly. You know, the UNC game was the only one they were even really competitive in conference so far. So for me, this one's easy. Eastern all the way. Are you gonna zag on me here, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, the Cal Poly Mustangs that can't run a straight line, or the Eastern Washington Eagles that are dropping and rising in elevation frequently. It's a done deal. Like, you're going to cover more ground through the air. I'm taking Eastern.
Yeah, make it easy. Then Northern Arizona at Montana State. This one feels like a similar story. Just instead of the two teams being here, the two teams are like here. You know,
Right.
I still for all the audio listeners, I put my hands up in two slightly different shapes to paint the picture for you. Uh, I think even with the loss to Idaho, Montana State, they're mortal, but also I still think they're the class of the league. I think I said last week Idaho was the one team I felt like could beat them in the Big Sky. And last time I checked, Northern Arizona is not Idaho, so Montana State for me on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take Montana State because it's not being played in a dome again. So the poor little Lumberjacks, even though they're at a very high elevation, will have to be out in the cold, and I don't know how they'll deal with that. Uh, I don't really see them getting a sweep over the Montanas as the Lumberjacks want to have it happen so much. I don't see that happening. I see this is like a get back. This is like a revenge game. You know, Montana State's going to get all of their frustration from last week out now.
Yeah, I feel like Northern Arizona's one like hope coming into like this previous week was that Montana State was like coming off a big win against Idaho and looking forward to the brawl and maybe overlooked them, but I don't think that's going to happen now. So speaking of the brawl, kind of Montana, Sac State's coming to town. What is this? A top 7 matchup in the stats per form poll. Sac State coming off the drubbing of Idaho State, and Montana State or in Montana coming off the drubbing of us. I will let you take the lead here, Ben. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those that this game goes both ways. Historically, in the past couple of years, Sac State has given the Grizzlies quite a bit of trouble. So, I don't know. Sac State looks good. Montana's looking hot right now. So, I'd say this one's going to be probably one of our more competitive games that we've seen. I feel like this is going to be kind of like the Idaho game, the Lil Brown Stein game that Montana played, and it's going to come down to just one or two things. I would say this game is pretty even, and I'm leaning Montana just because it's in Missoula.
I can't honestly argue with too much that you said there. I was hoping you were going to go Sac State because I'm also on Montana in this one. I think the parallels to that Idaho game are pretty solid. I mean, it's not a 1-for-1, but I think Montana will have the advantage up front on both sides, and I think especially at home, the weather's not only going to get colder, but chances are it's not going to be super warm out in front of 26,000. I'm with you. I'm starting to drink the Montana Kool-Aid. I've done a complete 180 on them, as I probably most of the country has. But I'm with you. I think the Grizz are going to take care of this one, and I guess simplify the race a little bit, but also complicate that Big Sky race a little bit more up top.
Right. Yeah. I think I think that Bobby Hauck has found his rhythm, and it looked bad against us in the first quarter. That was a bad showing, but then they quickly turned it up. They showed who they were. Just for your information, the last 3 games, Sacramento State is on a hot streak of 3 wins in a row. So I don't know if that changes your opinion, but the 4 wins out of the 24 times they've played, Sac State's last 3 wins have been on a hot streak.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a better chance this year than they've probably had most years in that 4-20 record. But I think there's a reason Montana has won all those games over Sac State, and especially in Montana. I struggle to see Sac State winning this one.
Yeah, I mean this could be really interesting. The last 2 times they played, it was only separated by 7 points. So we'll see if the Hornets can get a upset in Missoula. I don't see it happening. I see that 3 win streak coming to an end.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. All right, so let's take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll look around the FCS. We talked about this a little bit, but I think it's safe to say that Idaho-Montana State game was by far the game of the weekend. But coming in, I don't think we necessarily thought that. San Diego State was playing South Dakota in South Dakota, or in Vermilion. And it was just an absolute drubbing. There was even talk of like College Game Day. I don't know how legit that was going there for this one. And I mean, that Utah game wasn't much better, but the Jackrabbits just showed why they're number one, why they haven't lost in 22 straight. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean it was pretty funny. The FCS tri poll, they put out a cute little graphic that said South Dakota State in the number 1 spot, and the rest of their 25 was who cares, because at this point it's the Jackrabbits league to lose. They beat Montana State at the beginning of the year, and they've been just cooking everybody else they've been in front of. No other games have really come that close. It looks like this is the Jackrabbit heavy favorite year, and we'll just see what happens in the rest of the season. But that was much worse than I think most of us expected.
Yeah, consider me as most of us, because I wasn't ready for that one when I saw that score. I think I can't remember which of like the 4 main FCS Twitter people I see had this take. But it was something along the lines of like maybe South Dakota State is just like that much better than everybody else, and Montana State kind of caught them on like not a perfect storm, but Montana State played well. South Dakota State didn't play well that week, and the Jackrabbits were still able to get a win there. Seeding's going to be a lot more interesting. I think before this one, it was pretty straightforward, like the top 2 seeds. But now we'll really have to see kind of how, like, where Montana State shakes out in the bracket, and if that matchup, like that rematch, may happen before Frisco. The only other thing, this was the biggest win. The way when I saw this stat, it was phrased a little weirdly. It's the biggest win in this series since 1963. 1963 may have been the first matchup, though. I do not have the requisite background knowledge to know that. But either way, what's that? About 60 years, actually 60 years on the dot. So this was a big one for South Dakota State.
Yeah, big one for them, and it just even more cements that they're number 1. I mean, it'd be interesting to go back through, but I haven't seen many polls where there's been any deviation from all the first place votes being on South Dakota State.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it would be hard to make a case to vote for anybody else, really. Little bit more. FAMU already punched their ticket to the SWAC championship. Florida A&M, what are they, 7-1 now, 6-0 in conference play. They beat Prairie View A&M 45-7. So it feels like it's just about as early as you possibly, maybe not as early, but close to as early as you can clinch like a share of the conference title.
Yeah, pretty exciting for them, and I'm pretty sure that, let's see, looking at the MEAC, I mean it's 2-0, 2-0, NC Central and Howard in conference, but NC Central is 7-1 and somewhere in the low teens in most people's polls. Howard is 4-4, so I'm pretty sure NC Central will be able to be the MEAC representative in the Celebration Bowl. So it looks like it's shaping up to be uh, Florida A&M versus NC Central, unless something happens in those conference title games, because they get to have those since the winner doesn't participate in the playoffs. They go to the Celebration Bowl. So unfortunately, even though NCCU and FAMU are in the polls, those great teams will have to watch on ABC January 1st or so.
Nice. I love the date channel crossover knowledge already.
I know it's on ABC. I don't remember what day for sure though, but the Celebration Bowl is always fantastic, and usually the bands get a little bit of a play in there, whether it's at halftime or in the fifth quarter. It's pretty fantastic little deal they got going on there.
Nice. So yeah, let's move on to a handful of teams that I think you could really care less for. Holy Cross beat Fordham 49-47. I feel like you've been pretty low on Holy Cross most of the year. And then Incarnate Word 17 over Lamar 7. We'd kind of talked about that one. I think it was a little closer than I was expecting, but I'm also just a little bit less and less impressed by Incarnate Word as the season has gone on.
Yeah, I think with Holy Cross getting so much top 10 love at the beginning of the year and coming into the year, it's just they've disappointed every turn. I mean, they lost to Harvard, and they just haven't looked the same since. And UIW, I think this is just kind of a familiar opponent, of just more so of a rival, not necessarily a technical one. I think that's why this game was so bad, but Zach Calzada's not looking great as the year goes on. So we'll see what they do. I think UIW is riding a little bit too high, and they need to figure some stuff out before playoffs.
Yeah, and hopefully, I don't know the extent of Calzada's injury, but hopefully, like just for competitive sake, he is as close to 100 as he can be come playoff time because he's so talented. I mean, watching him against like our UNC defense early in the year probably isn't the best gauge of like where he's actually at, but he can just sling it, and he's got just a great arm, and he's just really fun to watch. So for really everybody's sake, I hope he's healthy come playoff time. And so that will move us into next week, week 10. It's honestly, it's pretty entertaining. I think we're going to have pretty solid games every week from here on out. The headliner is probably South Dakota State at North Dakota State. It's not as much of a headline as it would have been were they 1-2 coming into the season. But it's still, is it a top 10 matchup? Just about a top 10 matchup. NDSU sitting at 11th in that stats perform poll.
Yeah, and with this marker game, like usually this is one of the marquee games at the end of the year. I think it's still an important game. Excuse me. But looking at Sac State, Montana, I think we've been pretty spot on, minus one or two games for a game of the week of most competitive. This one should be more competitive because they're going to be in Fargo. But from what we've seen, I don't see a reason that the Jackrabbits don't do what they did to the rest of the Missouri Valley Conference, and North Dakota State might get their first being swept by their sister school and cousin schools. So that'd be an interesting statistic if they lose. How excuse me. How long it's been since they've been swept by everybody in their neighboring communities.
That's interesting. I can't wait to read that stat at the top of the analyst week 10 takeaways list.
Yeah, Sam Herder, go look right now. Look it up right
Yeah,
now because he might need that handy.
get that stat ready so you can tweet it once South Dakota State goes up 3 touchdowns. I think the other, I guess, probably contender for game of the week would have been South Dakota at Southern Illinois. South Dakota coming off that embarrassing loss, and Southern Illinois just consistently a top 15 team this year. What is it? Is it number 10 versus number 11 at the moment? So I think that one has every possibility of being just as competitive as that Idaho third time's the charm, as the Montana Sac State game. Got Idaho on the brain for some reason. But I just think Big Sky. We got to lean into that one for our game of the week.
Yeah, definitely. And I think South Dakota got a little bit of a kind pole position for how much they got walloped by SDSU. I mean, comparatively, Montana State also dropped, but I feel like when you get beat by 34 points by the number one, that really is kind of like a sit down moment of, okay, you can't mess with dad quite yet. You gotta sit back and try again in a couple years.
Yeah, it's like you're in 7th grade and you like made the middle school basketball team and you like come home cocky and then you play 1-on-1 and he just backs you down 11 straight times and like it's a little hook layup over your head just to remind you who's in charge.
Right. Yeah, trying to go in for that poster dunk on the 6-foot hoop and nope, swatted out of the hand.
It looks like other games we have Furman at Chattanooga. That one could be pretty interesting. Another good test for Furman, who it's probably just because we're so engulfed in Big Sky stuff, but seeing Furman at 2 just looks weird, and not necessarily wrong. It just doesn't seem right. They just felt like kind of out of the picture up until this point with like the Big Sky battling and the Missouri Valley like knocking each other out. And here's Furman just consistently winning games, climbing up that pole like notch by notch.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it the other day. Is Missouri Valley's looking pretty good right now because Big Sky has been kind of self-cannibalizing. There's been some risers and fallers, and really there's 4 core teams from the Big Sky that look really hot, really competitive. And then Furman's just kind of, sneaking by like, oh, there's a corpse there. There's one there. I'm going to just settle in this number 2 spot. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but they have disappointed a lot in past years in the playoffs. So I'm hoping for their sake that they do better this year. I think you put it perfectly as this is a test for Furman, not necessarily a close matchup. So I think Chattanooga has the possibility to win this game, especially with it being at Chattanooga. But the other thing is Furman looks good. They're in the driver's seat. It's their game to lose.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it. I mean, we both really did, but I feel like with how the Big Sky plays out coming down these last few weeks, I think there's a pretty solid chance that Furman doesn't end up in that number 2 spot when it's all done. Because if you say like Idaho wins out, and they're 1-loss Big Sky school with wins over Montana State, Sac State, or Montana State wins out, 1-loss Big Sky, and that another loss to South Dakota State. So I think they lost to your top 2 teams. Yeah, in your poll. I think there's a chance it'll ultimately kind of shake itself out and Furman will end up in a more reasonable, doesn't seem like the right word, because they deserve that number 2 spot, but it'll feel more right if they have like a 4 next to their name when the playoffs start instead of that 2.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a good way to put it. Is with the playoff seeding, things will change, and the top 25 is not a end all be all of how things really are or how things will be for the playoffs. And thankfully so, because looking at some of the teams that are ranked, like I don't agree with them. So I'm glad that it's not solely based off of the top 25, because one of our other games that we were talking about for possibly a good game this week is William and Mary at Albany. I don't know, 23 and 24. I think that Albany is just a lot better than William and Mary, especially for the hype that they received at the beginning of the year, and then they're playing these close games to these bad teams. I mean, they lost 2 weeks ago to Towson by 10 points, and they're 3-5. And then the other 3-5 team they beat this week, they only beat them by 3. So I don't think William and Mary is quite on the same page as Albany is. I mean, Albany, their last 2 weeks is they put 25 extra points on Rhode Island, and Rhode Island's 5-4 right now, and there's the Albany 6-3, and they had a closer game with Maine, but they still beat them by 16 points, and that's what you should be doing with bad teams. So we'll see, but yeah, we'll transition into the top 25 and let you attack me for being wrong.
Okay, so before the berating begins, I will say I think I like yours better than the stats perform. No, I haven't honestly had that many opinions like so far in this year. But I don't know it. Again, it's probably because I'm so like entrenched in Big Sky stuff. SDSU, Idaho, and Montana State is 1, 2, 3. Makes sense in my head. I completely understand why Furman and Delaware would be ahead of them in some polls. Then yeah, the first thing I really run into, you have Sac State at 6, Montana at 7. Do you think Sac State's better than Montana, or do you think it's just a resume thing? Because we both did pick Montana, but also that's in Missoula, so it's not exactly a 1-to-1 matchup.
Yeah, it's definitely more so of I think that Sac State's resume and the questions I have for Sac State are less so for the questions I've had and kind of the skeletons in Montana's resume. Looking at it, like, yeah, I definitely would pick Montana this week. I think Sac State still has the ability to win that game, but looking at it, I have less questions uh, from Sac State's, even though we played them much closer than we played Montana. I think you have to look at it objectively. Like when we played Sac State, like we still had some hope, like things were still good. With Montana, we lost our best safety very early in the game on the NCAA's whimsiest little definition of targeting, which I will not go into.
I need to get like a little whiteboard to sit behind me, and I'll be like number of episodes since Ben's ranted about targeting, and it'll just be 0 the entire time.
Yep. Thankfully, we don't have a language restriction like the McAfee show does, where they do their tallies. But my tally is going to be targeting for sure, because I think everybody should have an issue with it. That hit with Destin Johnston, he even retweeted my little diatribe about him on there, and he agreed with it as well. Is he was just bracing for the hit. He wasn't trying to hurt that kid. I think some of the parts of targeting make sense, and the crown of the helmet does make sense, but there needs to be some intent. There needs to be some. It's the most loosely worded penalty in all of sports. Is just like if this part touches, you're done. Okay, that's great. Just whole day's done. So back to what we're talking about. We played Sac State much better, but there's a lot of factors why we played Montana so much worse. Montana, we were at home versus being at a very scary 26,000 plus stadium. Just resume wise, I have less questions with it. I also don't think Montana's played a whole lot of the hard teams. I mean, Sac State, they played a good game against Idaho at Idaho. They played a decent game at home against Montana State. I just feel like Sac State has gone through more things recently, and Montana, they'll get there because they have the Brawl of the Wild, they have Sac State, so it's not an easy last couple weeks for them. But they're hitting their slog now rather than Sac State's seen a couple things so far.
For sure. So then also another one that stood out to me in the stats perform poll. Richmond was one of the receiving votes schools, and they received 13 votes. But if you had a vote in that poll, it would have been 14 because you have them at number 25 here. What have you seen? What have you seen from them?
So just like a disclaimer is like 20 through 25, it's very much subjective and like it gets pretty close. I mean, it just some of the teams in there I would not pick over Richmond. Like UC Davis still getting 3 votes.
Hilarious.
Who is sending those votes out? This is stats perform. This is not the coaches poll. Like you're supposed to be paying attention, watching games. Like I like UC Davis. It's just they're not healthy and they're not performing well. So sending votes out to them for what? Because they were in it and you just like haven't dropped them far enough out because you haven't found enough teams that you actually know yet. Like that doesn't make sense to me. I went through and I had 38 teams that I liked this week for the top 25, and I whittled it down based off the schedule. I think Richmond's just hitting a high gear right now. I mean, their last couple games, they've been doing well. You know, Rhode Island's kind of one of those games that one of those teams that floats in and out. Like they're good, but they're like they just can't close out. Richmond closed them out on the 21st. Richmond beat NC&T by 23. That's what you're supposed to do against a 1-7 team. They beat Campbell, which was getting lots of love at the beginning of the year, 44-13. Like they're hitting a high gear. They're definitely doing what they need to. They don't have an especially tough schedule, so I can't say that there's really much to them that, win-wise, there's not a whole lot of quality wins quite yet. But I would say they're hitting a good gear. Momentum, I think, should be accounted for. I think people really penalize them for that 17-10 loss against Morgan State in the first game of the year. That is pretty embarrassing because you shouldn't be losing to Morgan State. But, I mean, they have 2 more weeks to prove themselves, and they're going to be against Elon, which is typically a tough team. Typically in the playoffs this year, they're at 500. So, not so great, but they end the year with William and Mary. So, I think whoever wins that November 18th game should be the one who gets to stay in the poll.
All right. So, last but not least, Ben, there's been a handful of teams that you're consistently a little lower on than consensus, and I would say Northern Iowa is probably one of those. You have them at 23 in your poll, 18 in the stats perform, I believe. Yeah, and like you mentioned, those kind of 20 through 25 are very subjective. Even honestly, I feel like 15 through 30, like you could kind of toss them in a hat half the time. Is it just, have you just been burned one too many times by Northern Iowa, Ben?
They're again one of those teams. They're a floater. They're a bobber. They float and they sink. They float and they sink. Like they're just hovering right above the surface of like where like top 25 meets up at. That North Dakota game was fantastic. They played well in their last game against Illinois State. So yeah, they're in my poll. But when you don't compete against South Dakota State, I mean, who can? But at this point, like I'm less and less penalizing that. But when you only score 6 points and you're supposed to have a quarterback that could be that should have been in contention for the Walter Payton and just has been not hitting as many strides as people project him to. There's good wins on there, like Youngstown State. That was a gritty win, 44-41. But there's still some things on there that have me a little bit wondering, like the Weber State one. That one's just kind of holding in my mind. And I know I just led Richmond off the hook for Morgan State, but Weber State at least is a good team that they lost to, and it's like why were you so bad at the beginning of the year? And I like them, but they're inconsistent. They're either in the 40s or they're in the 20s for scoring, and there's not really in between. I just haven't been able to really figure out what this team is doing quite yet. I like them, but again, there's not a lot of marquee wins. I mean, they have 0-7 Western Illinois coming up. That's a nice little tune-up game. nice little add to the dub, get 6-3, cool. But that's not going to wow anybody, and you need to win that game by 30 plus, like 25, 30 plus. Missouri State's next with 3-4, and then they end the year with the Bison. That's kind of like, as it shapes up going down the line, all these teams that I'm low on, they have opportunities to make themselves into what they should be and where they should be in the poll, but they got to win those. Last 2 weeks of the year are going to define the playoffs and define, do you have enough wins to make it? Did you have enough quality wins? On Northern Iowa's quality wins, like Illinois State's kind of a quality win. North Dakota's definitely is. And, Youngstown State's kind of is. So it's good. It's just the inconsistency of play doesn't give me a lot of confidence to put them much higher than the 20s.
Very understandable. All right. Well, I think that will do it for us here, unless there's anything you want to add, Ben.
No, I think we've done well. I'm hoping the Bears do well because we have, in my poll at least, number 2 Idaho coming to town. On stats, it's number 3. So this could be an interesting weekend for us to get a little scouting on Giovanni McCoy, but I don't think we're going to necessarily see a W at Nottingham.
Well, I can't really argue with you there. If you like what we do, please leave a comment. Thank you for listening. If you don't like what we do, leave a message in Ben's inbox as always. I have been Chris Bolin, joined by Ben Schleiger. Have a good one.